Welcome aboard the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon video series. I am your host, Captain Matt, and we are dedicated to helping first-time and experienced boat buyers find the right boat at the best price so they have years and years of boating fun, because life truly is better on a boat. Today, we're going to talk about how to buy a used boat in Florida, and our sponsor is the Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon Toolkit. It is a free gift from us to you to help you find the right boat at the best price. You can download that for free at boatbuyerssecretweapon.com. And we are hearing from a lot of people that have said this has been an invaluable tool to help us zero in on the right boat, keep track of the boats that we do look at, and it's just been a valuable tool in their boat shopping experience. So today we're talking specifically about Florida. As you know, Florida is the largest boat market, which means that there are some great opportunities and there is also some things that we need to be concerned with. So we're going to start with how to spot a scam. Because it's the largest market there, because of the hurricanes, because of the environment, there are a lot of diverse boats. There's a lot of boats available, but it's also a place where people try to pull some fast ones. And we're going to give you some heads up there. Common for sale by owners issues to avoid. There's a lot of for sale by owner boats in the Florida market, and we're going to show you some things to look out for, options to consider in the Florida market, how to avoid someone else's headache, which is a big one. When you're buying a used boat, you don't want someone else's headache, and there are some easy things that you can do to help avoid that. Must do inspections before buying. We'll touch a little bit on financing and insurance tips. And at the end, we have that free gift for you that I think you're going to find very, very valuable. So there was some research done a couple years ago now that 1 in 7 boats listed on Craigslist had a major issue or was an outright scam. There's a company called, I forget the name of it right now. We'll talk about it later. But there's a company that did this research, and they discovered that there were boats that had hurricane damage, that were salvaged titles, that the title was not available on that boat. Boats that had some significant repairs that were needed when you went to inspect them, and that were not disclosed. 1 in 7 boats on Craigslist, and that same kind of transverse over to a boat you may find on the side of the road that's just sitting in a parking lot, to boats that are on Boat Trader. There even found some issues with brokers that were offering boats. It wasn't as common with dealerships, but there were some issues found at dealerships as well. So you want to be cautious when you're looking at used boats for sale in the Florida market, that any red flags that you see doesn't turn you off the boat completely, but it just has you slow down and make sure that there's nothing that is going to cost you and get somebody else's headache. Here are some telltale signs, some red flags that, hey, this might be a scam. I want to slow things down, and before money changes hands, before I commit to anything, before I give out too much of my personal information, any of that thing, that you just step back and you say, okay, what's going on here and what can I do to protect myself? So if there's no phone contact or there's poor grammar in the email, several of the boats that were listed, they would take a screenshot of a boat in your market area. So it would have FL numbers. The boat would look like a Florida boat, but the seller, they didn't own the boat. They were out of the country in most cases. And as you would go back and forth on email, you would find some poor grammar. Not a done deal. There's a lot of people that I have poor grammar. You can, as I speak right now, you can be like, man, this guy, he knows his boat stuff, but he's not an eloquent speaker. So that's a red flag. Just, hey, they won't give you a phone number. They'll only do things by email. Number 2, they ask for money up front. That is a huge red flag. Anytime somebody says, well, why don't you send me $500 and we'll do this? Even if they offer to do an escrow service, there have been examples of fake escrow services set up where that looks like an escrow service online. You go to it and it seems legit. You send your money, and that it was their website, their escrow, their fake escrow service that looked legit, and that money was gone completely. If you are going to use the escrow service, you choose the escrow service. And from my research, escrow.com is one that seems very legit, and that is a larger player in the space. They won't allow you to inspect the boat in person. For, oh, we have some health issues, or the timing's not right, or I'm out of town. Again, just a red flag. Slow things down. Make sure you're making a wise decision before you move forward, so that that you don't get taken. There's no title, or the title is in a different name of the person. When you go to match up the ID of the person selling the boat, their driver's license or whatever ID they have, and the title, they don't match. Well, that can be an issue. Or they have no title, could be an indication it's a salvage title and they just don't want to tell you, and you're going to have a difficulty down the line without having that title in Florida. It has water damage, or it has sunk. Again, a lot of the hurricane boats are kind of coming back up. What will happen is a hurricane will happen, they total all these boats out, they sell them for pennies on the dollar. Somebody will buy a bunch of them, and they may fix them up, or they may clean them up, or they may just kind of put them in a big yard somewhere, and then they'll start trying to sell them. And that's something that can, especially in the Florida marketplace, is a major issue that they saw when they were doing the research on that 1 in 7 having an issue. That salvage title was a big one, and they won't allow a sea trial. No, I don't want everybody just running my boat, going out for a joyride. Well, that's fine. That's understandable from a seller's perspective. But at some point before I give you money, I need to get out of that boat on the water and see how it runs under load, see how it performs, run all of the accessories, the equipment, the pumps that can only be run when you're underway or on the water. And that, to me, is a deal killer. If you won't allow me to sea trial the boat, I am likely going to walk away. Doesn't mean you have to. I'm just giving you some, hey, watch out for these red flags. Now, specifically in Florida, let's talk about some economics. Florida has a 6% sales tax. In 2010, they capped it at $18,000, so that's about a $300,000 boat. If you are trading your boat in, if you're working with a dealer, that sales tax is going to be calculated based on the sales price less the trade value that they give you. So if the boat's $300,000, they're going to give you $100,000 for trade. That amount's going to be calculated at $200,000 times 6%, or $12,000. Okay. So if you're trading in Florida, know that you're going to save a little bit on the sales tax. It's something to consider, because that could be a significant amount versus selling the boat yourself and buying from the dealer. Well, maybe you won't make up that $6,000 difference by doing the trade. It depends on your situation, but understand that math, and it can have an impact. Titling fees, $20 to $450. It's based on the length. So a 16 or 18 footer is going to be closer to the $20. I think that 450 was like at 150 or 100 feet. I think is when it got up to that level. So it's pretty reasonable, and there's no yearly recurring property tax. Now, this is not legal advice or tax advice. This is based on my research that I did at myflorida.com/DOR, which is Department of Revenue, and then the FLHSMV.gov was the registration fee. So you can go to those sites. If they've updated, this is being recorded in 2019. If they change anything, go to those sites, verify for your specific situation, and you can get the up-to-date information. But right now, that's some basic information. Now, if you're buying out of state, you're coming to Florida to buy a boat, and you're going out of state, you may pay that sales tax depending on if you're buying from a private individual or a dealer. A dealer may collect it, and if you're going to your state, understand that your state where you're going to register the boat is probably going to ask for some sales tax, and you need to understand the difference. And that will happen if you're buying a boat out of state, if you're coming from Texas and going to Florida to buy a boat and taking the boat back to Texas, Texas may say, hey, if this boat gets registered in Texas within 90 days, 180 days, in the first year that you bought it, we are going to ask for sales tax as well. So you want to talk to your state, and if you know you're going to be going out of state, you won't pay the Florida sales tax, and you'll just pay your sales tax. So that's an important thing to figure out ahead of time, so that you're not double dipping and having to pay sales tax twice unknowingly. So in Florida, there's different styles of boats that are going to be most applicable. If you're inland, a deck boat or a bow rider can be a great option. If you're on the coast, you may want to look at something that has an outboard. The outboard boats are most popular on the coast because they're easier to maintain, easier to flush. They are better suited for that saltwater environment. And with the new technology on the newer boats, 2010 and newer, they are very efficient, very quiet, and that's why the marketplace is very much skewing towards outboard power, even in freshwater lakes, freshwater rivers. So those are some options that you want to look at. The stern drive is still best, in my opinion, if you're going to be swimming off the back of the boat, you're in a freshwater environment. I like that access to the water that you can only get with the stern drive or a jet drive. But the outboard power has a lot of advantages, including fuel efficiency, easier and cheaper maintenance, the ability to flush the engines, and the quietness and the weight are a lot of advantages. Other options on those types of boats is, do you want the sun pad or the walk-through? Do you need the bimini top, a canvas cover, a wake tower? Do you need a head compartment, a toilet or a porta potty? These are all options that some can be added after the fact. Others, if you get the sun pad, you can't change it to a walk-through. So you want to think about these things ahead of time as you're searching. Now, if you know the type of boat, we've got videos on deck boats and bow riders. We've got videos on aluminum fishing boats, on center consoles, which are going to be very popular in the Florida market, on pontoons and tritoons. So go check out those specific videos. If you want to dive deeper into the options that you're looking for, just realize that a bimini top can be $1,000 to $3,000 of an option. So if you're comparing one boat to another, one has a bimini, the other doesn't, and you know you want that shade, well, then you need to understand it's going to cost you a significant amount to add the bimini to this boat, and you want to take that into consideration. Inspections. So when you're looking at a boat that's coming out of Florida, it's likely going to have some saltwater exposure, so there's some specific things you want to look out for. But there's also some general things that you're going to look on every boat. Is the floor sturdy? So you want to walk around the transom or the deck of the boat, and you want to kind of lightly bounce up and down. You don't want to jump. I'm 200 plus pounds. You don't want to be jumping up and down, and if it is soft, to fall through. But you also want to make sure that there's enough bounce that if that floor has any softness, because that's going to tell you that the plywood has some rot in it, and that you may have a major problem very soon, and it may be a dangerous situation. Those wooden floors, typically from the early 90s, early 2000s, a lot of manufacturers started switching over, and if they were complete or encapsulated wood, or some of them have gone to strictly fiberglass, there's no wood in the boats, you're not going to have that issue. But anything that's earlier than the 2000s and the 90s, it's likely there's some wood in that floor, and you want to make sure it's nice and solid. Fiberglass bottom. So you want to inspect the bottom. See if the boat's been left in the water, if it has blisters, if there's any gouges, major scratches that seem to be more than cosmetic. And on fiberglass, you can get all the way down to that initial, through that gel coat layer into the first layer of fiberglass, and it's really just a cosmetic issue. Most boats, that the bottom of the boat is going to be at least 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick or more, that that scratch is just cosmetic. There's not any structural issues there. But you also want to look through that whole fiberglass bottom and know what you've got. Electronics, stereo systems, lights, gauges, switches. You want to go through all of that. This is why I encourage you to be on the water, because some things you can't test unless you're on the water. Any of the electronics, if it has a radar, if it has a fish finder, if it has a depth finder, if it has pumps for a live well or a bait well, you can't test those unless you're in the water. And some of them you want to test while you're underway to see how they work there. The upholstery and the canvas. Listen, some of that stuff can add up. It can be several $100s, several $1,000s to replace or fix, and you want to know that as you're making your investment. Latches, hatches, wiring, corrosion, especially in that saltwater environment. You want to get up under that helm station. You want to look at the wiring. You want to look back at the battery. You want to look at all the connections where you can see them and see if there's major corrosion going on, if you may have an electrical issue in the future. Hey, we just clean them off and we're good. But a wiring issue can be a huge pain in the butt. It can be very expensive to repair. The age of the fuel and the last time it's ran. If you come across a situation where a boat, they say, hey, we haven't run this boat for a couple of years. It's in perfect condition. It's been sitting in our barn. And man, you're getting a smoking deal. This thing's in pristine condition. It just hasn't run since Papaw passed away 5 years ago. Well, on one hand, that's great because the interior, the exterior are in great shape. On the other hand, there are some major issues that come with the mechanical engine that's sitting that hasn't been run. The oil has drained out of the engine block, and it could be corrosion. It could start rusting. The fuel can go bad in just a single year's time if it wasn't treated. And if it's sitting there and it's got moisture in it, you have ethanol in there, and there's phase separation, and there's a lot of major issues. So you want to ask that. How old's the fuel? When's the last time it's been run? And if it's been over a year or two, then you want to take some precautions and maybe even call in a professional, maybe get that gas pumped out and put fresh gas in. But it's something that you really need to ask if you're in that situation. For the engine, you want to ask these questions. Hey, what are the hours on the engine? When's the last time you changed the oil and the fluids? And check those yourself. They say, oh, we just changed it last season. When you check the oil and the gear lube and you check all those fluids, they should be clean. They should be full. You want to check the compression of the engine. The compression is how strong those cylinders are firing compared to what they were when it was brand new. You want to make sure that one, it's close to what it was when it was brand new, that it hasn't lost compression. And two, you want to make sure that they're within a 5 to 10% band of each other, so that it may be 120, 130, 120, or 180, 180, 180, 180, 180, depending on how many cylinders you have. It's an easy test to do. You can get a compression gauge. There's a link down in the video notes where you can buy one, and you check that compression. If you're not mechanically inclined, for $100, $200, depending on exactly where you are in Florida, you can hire somebody to check that for you. But that is a must-do inspection. A boat can look perfect, and it overheated one time, and the compression drops, and man, you've got yourself a very expensive boat that doesn't perform the way it should, and likely some costly repairs. Prop condition, drive condition, especially on stern drives in that saltwater environment. You want to make sure that the gear casing's in good shape, that there's not a ton of corrosion. You want to spin that prop, make sure that they're spinning straight. There's no wobble in the prop, an indication that maybe something got hit and that prop shaft was bent on outboards, stern drives, inboards, V drives, any of those. You want to spin that prop and make sure there's no wobble. Okay? Now, on the test drive, I mentioned, don't buy a boat unless you run it first. I don't care if it's new, if it's pre-owned, if it's a year old, if it's 30 years old. Run that boat before you write that final check or send that final wire. Start it cold if possible, which means that you're the first one to start it that day. Listen to it idle. Just let it run at the dock. Is it rough? Does it sound smooth? Does it sound right? Just listen to it, see what happens. Once you go away from the dock, you get outside of the no wake zone, just idle out into that open, and then go from idle to wide open throttle. Be safe. Make sure that you are capable of operating the boat. If you are not, bring somebody that is. But what's it sound like? Does it smoothly take off? Does it get up on plane? Does the bow rise? And it kind of blocks your field of vision. What happens? How does it sound? How does it feel? Come back to about 3/4 throttle and do a turn to port to starboard, left and right, and do a tight turn. How does it turn? Does it feel good? Is the steering wheel so tight turning against that prop that maybe that there's an issue with the steering cable? Again, be safe. I don't know what boat you're running. If it's if it's got quad 350s on it, maybe 3/4 is too much to run that boat in a tight turn. Run it according to what's safe for the boat that you're looking at. Adjust the trim if it's equipped. The trim on the motor, the trim tabs. Make sure that you understand how the boat handles, that it's going to be safe, it's going to be adequate for the way you want to run it. Once you run through those maneuvers, I want you to come back to idle speed, come back to neutral, just at a standstill, and I want you to go in gear forward, count 1, 2, 3, neutral 1, 2, 3, reverse 1, 2, 3, neutral 1, 2, 3, forward 1, 2, 3, neutral 1, 2, 3. Just go in and out of gear several times. How does it sound? Is it shifting smoothly? Is that shifting cable operating properly? If it's a cable, if it's fly-by-wire, if it's electronic like a lot of the new ones are, is it going in and out of gear smoothly? Does it sound right? And even if you're not mechanically inclined, you can sort of tell if something doesn't sound right. And then look for water spitting out of the engine on the outboards, especially in Florida. You're going to have a lot of outboards there. You want to make sure that it's peeing out of that little pee hole. That's going to tell you that the impeller is in good condition. Watch the temperature as well, and that's a question that you want to ask. When's the last time you changed the oil, gear lube? When's the last time you changed the impeller? How old are the batteries? It's going to give you a lot of information about how they took care of their boat, and then you can verify the impeller by, hey, how steady is that stream when we're running under load, running 2,000 RPMs, 3,000 RPMs. It's going to be just a dribble if you're sitting at idle in most cases, but you want to check for that as you're out on that test drive. If you are getting a boat with a trailer, you want to inspect that trailer while the boat's off of it. So inspect the winch stands and the straps, the lights, the bunks, the axles, and the bearing. In the saltwater environment, those axles, those bearings, all of those things can get corrosion, and they can become a very expensive repair. For even a 20-foot center console, that's probably a $3,000 to $4,000, maybe even $5,000 trailer that you're looking at. Aluminum I-beam is best in the saltwater environment. Galvanized is good as well, depending on the size of the boat. They're a little bit heavier. A painted trailer in the saltwater environment, a bad idea. So there's a video that we've done on trailers. If you're getting a boat with a trailer, you want to watch that one. We go into more details. Check the tires. Are the tires in good condition? Do they match? What's the tread look like? How old are they? In that trailer video, we talk about that as well. And again, do this all while off the trailer. Tires can be $100, $150 a piece. I've heard stories of people buying boats, and as they're driving away, they hit a bump and the axle breaks in half, and now they're stuck with their brand new boat. Bearings can go out on the interstate and be a very major issue. So you want to check all of those things before you make that final purchase, because those are expenses that will add up, and they can be expensive, they can be dangerous, and if you address them beforehand, maybe you can negotiate that price down a little bit. You can certainly get them taken care of before you get on the interstate and put yourself in a bad situation. Financing. There's a video on financing and insurance that goes into more detail, but if you're buying used, check with your local credit union, check with marine lenders. Local and national banks, they are typically going to be higher on everything. Credit unions are going to usually have the lowest rate, the lowest down payments. Marine lenders are typically going to have good solid rates and the longest terms, which is going to give you the lowest payment. If you're buying from a dealer, check with that dealership's lender. It's likely they're going to be very competitive. They may or they will make money from it, but they do a certain volume, so they get a discount. And oftentimes you can find some good competitive terms that will beat local national banks, will beat your credit union on the payment, and may even be a direct marine lender. I've seen situations where you go to Bank of the West or BB&T or U.S. Bank, and if you went direct to them, their rates and their terms would be worse than if you went through the dealer and they were still using that lender. So insurance on a typical boat that you're going to be looking at in Florida, $500 to $1,200 a year. If you're on the coast, if you're keeping it on the water, at a marina on the water, or you live on the water, that may be more expensive depending on where the hurricane rates have gone. But on a center console, a 25-foot center console, you're probably going to be looking $1,000 to $1,200. If you're looking bigger, maybe more expensive. The speed of the boat's going to have an impact. Again, watch that insurance video for more. Boat history report. If you're buying a used boat, I encourage you to get a boat history report. It's kind of the Carfax for boats. They're going to go through and they'll search, does it have a salvage title? Were there any major insurance claims? And they can go through the histories. They've tapped into all of the databases, and they're going to pull that report based on the serial number of the boat, that HIN number, the hull identification number, the serial number for the engine, and I think it's like $50. They can give you a pretty good level of confidence that that boat is a good, solid boat based on the history of it, based on the title. You're not going to have any of those issues. It's still on you to inspect the boat, to do the sea trial, to do that demo ride. But you can go to boathistoryreport.com. There's a link in the notes in the video on that. And this hopefully was very valuable for you. You can also claim your Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon, Boat Buyer's Toolkit. This is a free resource that we give you, boatbuyersecretweapon.com. The link's in the notes in the video, and you can click on that. It's a PDF download. You can grab it. It has, from what we're hearing from people that are grabbing it, it's very valuable in their research. It helps them zero in the type of boat. It helps them in their research to compare all the boats. It helps them in their financing decisions, their insurance decisions, and it just walks step by step. There's even one if you have a trade to make sure that you're calculating the numbers properly, and it's been a very valuable tool for people, experienced and first-time boaters. So boatbuyersecretweapon.com there. You can click on the link to subscribe to catch additional videos. There are some recommended videos for you. And again, if you want to grab that toolkit, boatbuyersecretweapon.com/toolkit, and you can pick that up. Our gift to you for sticking to the end of this video. Thank you, and we will see you next time. Remember, life truly is better on a boat.